Welcome to Zeros and Ones, podcast about philosophy, ancient wisdom, and the meaning of life. Here is your host, Becka Thompson.
Just having a little fun drumming, because it's very late, and this is ill-advised. Because who does attempts to do a podcast like your Gen Z on TikTok with your set up? And no, I'm not going live. I'm not. Hi, I'm Becca. I am your dutiful hostess with the mostest in life. How we got to now. That's a great TV show that used to be on PBS. I think it was PBS. It was Discovery Channel. How we got to now. It's really fascinating. I used to show it to the students. They always used to go, what does this have to do with math? And then one of them talked to the admin about it. And then the admin came in and said, what does this have to do with math? I said, if you can't understand how anything that is pattern development has to do with math, then I don't know what to tell you. I was a real peach. I think there's nothing administrators love more. The only thing the administrators love more, and the sarcasm scale of loving, than a totally brand new, I don't know what I'm doing teacher, is like a really grisly math teacher who's like, science too, who like leans back and is like, don't you dare tell me about my subject matter. Anyway, how we got to now, it's fascinating. It's really great. There's one on clocks and time. That's a different topic, but it's fascinating. Excuse me. So maybe this is the time I need to be recording podcasts, because it's late at night and there are no cars and there are no lawnmowers. So until I get my whole studio set up, maybe that's the way to go. And also be punchy from being tired. Just a long day. So something was sticking with me. I'm very, very grateful for the engagement that I had with the podcast from the other day. And that podcast I recorded while very tired. But I've made vows to myself of like, hey, get it out there. People have been asking me to do this for actual years whenever I start pontificating. You know, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I used to make jokes of like the person in college. I'm Gen X, please. Like, you needed to be told that. But in case, you didn't get the memo. Like that person in the 90s, right, in the back of the coffee shop with their cigarettes. I don't smoke. They're hand rolled, of course, right? And they're sitting in the back. And they're going to tell you about how terrible you are because they just read a book by Nietzsche. And, they've got not a raspberry beret, a black beret. That's so I used to always say to people when I was getting my bachelor's of science, because they would be like, are you getting a BA in math? And I was like, excuse me, no, I'm getting a BS in math. Yes, a BS in math. Because I was a science snob. And there's a huge difference between a BS and a BA, by the way. And I was like, what, do you want me in the back of a coffee shop smoking cigarettes and complaining about life like all the other philosophers? And now you've become the very thing you swore to destroy. It happens to all of us. I don't want to lose heart. Everybody loses heart. No, you don't have to. I came on here tonight to tell you when you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, that you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. That's actually not, it is why. It is why. Not that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but I do. I love you. I do. I love anybody who's willing to listen to deep thoughts with Jack Candy. Man, now we're cooking with kerosene. Okay. All attempts at being serious. The thing is like, the Apostle Paul talks about this too, about how too much knowledge has made you mad. Mad being not angry mad, but like madness, like insane, right? Is that like Koheleth is from the book of Ecclesiastes. Talks about, he had riches and it didn't satisfy, and I had all the women, or, all he was talking about physical pleasures. It didn't satisfy. I ate whatever I wanted. It didn't satisfy. I went to war with people. It didn't satisfy. I conquered things. It didn't satisfy. I made buildings for myself. It didn't satisfy. I did all these things, everything under the sun, right? That's in Ecclesiastes. It's about halfway through the Old Testament if you don't know the book. It's my view of life, because Koheleth, who's often attributed to Solomon, but I don't attribute it to that. I say Koheleth because we don't know who Koheleth just means, the teacher, right? Koheleth is talking about all these amazing things that he's done. She's done, likely a man, who knows, right? It's coming down in oral tradition. And at the end of it all, he says, nothing satisfies. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity and a chasing after wind. P.S. This was written like 5,000 years ago. Nothing is new under the sun. Therefore, right? Ergo, cogito ergo sum, right? The ergo is therefore. Therefore, drink your wine, have your laugh, young man, and enjoy the fruit of your life while you can. That's the culmination of Ecclesiastes, which is halfway through the Old Testament. And that's my way of life. I used to tell people when I'd meet them, or if, when Facebook was new and you would change things. This was before X came along and took the status. It was kind of fun I used to change my status every morning on Facebook because I just thought it was a silly thing I don't know. I was learning how to do social media. Not that anybody knows. It's a crazy thing, right? And I would always leave up there, I have an ecclesiastical view of life, which I do. So the reason I came on here a little bit punchy, being like Harry Burns to Sally Albright, is that somebody commented on the thing the other day talking about the analemma. Okay, so let's get you up to speed. The analemma is an astronomical phenomenon. It's just a thing that were you to take a picture from the same spot in the same direction of the sky every single day for a year, you would get this sort of bowling ball shape. It shifts depending on what object you're taking a picture of, but if you can look this up, if the sun is what is the most common, right? And I said it's mathematically impossible, and someone critiqued and said, well, you're just saying that. I can make whatever statement I want. And I said, well, it's math, right? And they urged me to make some sort of a proof. Now, to make an absolute proof, I'd have to get into calculus with you. And quite frankly, like, those are equations that I don't want to break my brain on, because part of my argument is that everything's simpler. Okay, so I'm going to get my handy-dandy, amazing whiteboard, and I'm going to draw you a picture. And hopefully that will compel you enough, and I don't have to start talking about Leibniz and Isaac Newton and calculus. And I was just talking with a friend of mine this weekend about multivariable calculus. And she's like, I haven't done that in 15 years. And I was like, yeah, I don't know that I want to teach that. All right, hold on. Sidebar, multivariable calculus is basically movement in 3 directions, which is third dimension. Okay, multiple variables. So calculus, if you didn't know, calculus is about determining the location, the locus, of an object on a curve, and usually that is over time. But I'm just going to give you like a bare bones. So if you're listening somewhere and not watching this, then Godspeed and use your imagination. But if you're here for the video, it's really incredible. Now, this is the highest tech. This is the highest of high tech. I mean, I've got this amazing microphone. I can just whisper. So I actually, years ago, I had the same manager as Josh Hartnett. Manager as in like managed our acting careers. And she's an incredible person. And Josh, I know, I interacted with him a few times, but mostly it was just, she would tell me stories and I would laugh, that he was in a film once, and according to Nancy, the director was like, Josh, we're going to need you to say that a little louder. The mic's having trouble picking you up. And he was like, then move the mic closer. So these are these amazing mics. And now we can talk about shorty balls. Okay, now it's midnight. It's live from Minneapolis. It's Tuesday night. Okay, so the This is what happens. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Okay, so the analemma and calculus and what our current model of the universe is. Okay, so our current model of the universe is that, okay, if this circle is the sun is projecting out to somewhere. We don't know where, okay? Because in theory, here's a piece of space-time, which was the Big Bang, okay? Big Bang. And the Big Bang projected out all sorts of things billions of years ago. One of them spitting out was the sun and all the planets, okay? And there's, whatever. So as the sun, and we don't know if it's a straight line, and we don't know what direction it's going. Now, remember, this is in 3D space, supposedly. And I say supposedly because I'm talking about math. Math is the language of the universe. It is the only true singular language that exists. And so, okay. So, remember, the analemma is a static, I'm standing here looking out, taking a photograph, and it creates a perfect bowling ball every single year, repeatedly. Okay, so, but this is our current model. This is why I'm saying it's mathematically impossible. And I don't want to have to do the calculus for you to prove it to you, because I think my little picture is going to be enough. Maybe you won't agree. So here's the sun hurtling through space away from the Big Bang toward we don't know. Okay? And within this, the Earth circles it like a corkscrew. So in theory, like, I'm born here under the sign of Leo in the year of our Lord. I'm not going to tell you right now. And I have corkscrewed through this, right? And all of these places on this cyclone are the greatest day on the planet, August 1st. Obviously, you knew that, right? So if you didn't pick up that that's my birthday, then I'm not being overt enough. That's my birthday. Okay. So in theory, this is our model. This is our model. You might be going, what the actual poop? But that is our model, okay, of the universe. So we don't know where we're going, and we are connected like a lasso, right, to the sun. All the planets are. None of them flow off into space. Why? We haven't really fully declared that. The logic is that the sun has just enough mass to keep us there. But after all this time, and Pluto, by the way, has been downgraded, why would Pluto still stay in the spot? So all of the planets, okay, here we are, right? So in theory, Mars is circling like this. Now, do you see I have a different angle on Mars? And in theory, Mercury is like this. Okay? Even my little picture is getting scribbled already. Okay? Already. Now imagine all the planets and all the stars. The analemma means that as we're cycloning through here, no matter where we take a picture of the sun, it is always the same. And it almost looks like a figure eight. It's like a bowling ball. It's not quite. This is why we get the symbol of the infinity. P.S. The symbol of infinity, which we're going to talk about later. But so this is why. So if this model is true, you would, like, it's logical. I don't have to do the multivariable calculus for you, do I? It's logical that one of the planets somehow, somewhere would change. And it never does. Have you seen pictures of Polaris? Usually I use this for math. Now we're doing it for scribbles. Have you seen pictures of Polaris? Polaris, if you live in Minnesota like I do, is not just a snowmobile making machine. I'm not a fan of snowmobiles. They're so much fun, but they're so loud and I'm like the cross-country skier, right? I'm out there in the wilderness by myself listening to the owl, and all of a sudden it's like, me, 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 me. Okay, that's not the Polaris I'm talking about. I'm not talking about snowmobiles. Although they're a Minnesota company and I support them, okay, because anything in Minnesota I will support. Yeah, sure, you betcha. But so Polaris, the North Star, is literally, if you take a time-lapse picture, it's just every other star is a circle around it. You can do a time-lapse and watch the other stars arc across the sky, and Polaris, the North Star, never moves. Again, we're talking about three-dimensional space, okay? If a spider falls down from my, amazing lamp there and is dangling, what kind of movement will I do before the backdrop of my spider changes? And we're talking about thousands of stars, and they don't change. Or when they do, they're predictable. Against a backdrop of hurtling through space at millions of miles a second, it is not mathematically possible. Now, the other thing that this person, I think it's a gentleman, I don't know, that this person asked was for an alternative. And I actually invited them to come on and discuss this with me. That'll be fun. So hopefully if you're watching this, you would do that. I'm going to set this down. It's very high-tech. And scene. So the other critique or the other question was, give me an alternative. I have an alternative, okay, in my brain that I have discovered through a series of events that I don't care to discuss right now, because this is where religion comes in again. Okay, the Bible, not religion. Religion means to bind. The people who are in darkness have seen a great light. So if people think that I'm telling them their science that they believe in is wrong, P.S., guess what? Very few people know how to truly interpret the Bible. And before you say I'm being arrogant and narcissistic, I don't know what to tell you. When I was a child, I was told, and it's in scripture as well, that when you write scripture on a child's heart, it'll come back to them, right? I don't know what else to say except for as a person, okay, this is my own story, which I don't want to infuse into this too much, but I'm just going to tell you, as a person, when I had completely abandoned scripture and was only studying science and only studying the meaning of life through that measure and metric, I would have these aha moments where scripture would come back to me, but not in the way that it was presented to me when I was a child or a church or whatever, right? So the people who've walked in darkness have seen a great light. Light is the essence of everything that is here. So, light is, I mean that actually. You listening to me now and seeing me now is based in light and optics and the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum. The analemma is just one example. Polaris is just one example that you can open your eyes and just see. You can just see it. I've often said to people, I said, do you understand how grotesque it is that there are things in the world that are trying to literally gaslight all of us into not believing our own eyes? And it starts with the fucking sun that you see rising every morning. How can we predict an eclipse? Ask yourself, how can we predict an eclipse? And how is it that the disks, again, I erased it, the moon is in there too, by the way, are insane cataclysmic spirals of our current model, and somehow the disks of the sun and the moon fit perfectly every time. U2 has a song, I think it's Acrobat, from Achtung Baby, 1991. Yeah, we're living, I already told you I was Gen X. Let's not play. The very first line, don't believe what you hear, don't believe what you see. If you just close your eyes, you can feel the enemy. The more you investigate it, the less sense it makes. And the less sense it makes, the more sense it makes of the why. But the more sense it makes, they're two different it's. Okay? The more you investigate, the less sense it makes, tiny I. And the less sense tiny I it makes, the more sense big I it makes. The less sense it makes, the more sense it makes. Because you have to swap out. But I can't tell you what that is. I have discovered in the world with intense truth that you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. I am not here to force anything on anyone at all. I have learned the hard way. No one is ever going to tell me what to do. I would not dare to condescend to you to tell you what to do. I will tell you what I've learned, and I will tell you what I know, in the sense that after, in my own version of Ecclesiastes, turning over every stone, I have come to the conclusion that we are all one. All evidence points to that everything is one and infinite at the same time. So then you say, okay, well then what's the point of life? I don't want to give away the ending. That's for you to decide anyway. That's for you to decide. But when you strip away the madness, when you strip away the banal nonsense that has been placed before us like a veil. I mean, The Wizard of Oz alone. Okay, now I'm not on my book. I'm just riffing. The Wizard of Oz alone, it tells us what it is. There are people along the road who are less direct than I am because they also knew the same things that I have discovered. I'm trying to put it in a podcast. Shakespeare put it in his plays. Frank Baum put it in a story about a girl named Dorothy who wanted to go home. And say it with me. What happens when Glinda the Good Witch comes after her big adventure with the no-brained straw man, the zero-hearted tin man, and the lion that lacked any courage? What did she discover? She discovered that the great and powerful Oz was an old man pulling levers. And when Glinda came back, she said, you could have gone home anytime you wanted. What's the metaphor? We were told that story, all of us. That film came out before my parents were born, when my grandparents were children. And yet I saw it from the time I was a little kid. Why? Why? What is that story telling us? What is that story telling you? It's not just a fairy tale. It's not just a fairy tale. Why does Hamlet talk about death? Why? And Shakespeare was so fucking brilliant, Shakespeare was not Shakespeare, but that's a whole different topic. But that, he used iambic pentameter, and Marlowe as well. Iambic pentameter. So the meter, iambic, right? Pent is 5, pentameter. So the iams, I am. That's also in the book somewhere. One, the biography of all things. Spoken that way and put everything in verse. The brilliance of Shakespeare. Everything is in verse. And is this the face that launched 1,000 ships? Right? People who don't know how to say it don't know how to say it. But the code is, the stress things are trying to help you, and the punctuation is trying to help you not only how it's being said, but what matters. Because actually the lines come off of each other with this clipped, and people who don't know what they're doing don't know what they're doing. But Shakespeare has encoded every phrase. So, a history of a lot of these things has been co-opted. And I would just encourage everybody to seek for themselves. And look, I'm never going to should somebody. Here's the beautiful thing about life. You get to live it exactly the way that you want to. You get to live life how you want to. The way I'm going to live life the way I want to. By X. But I see so many people, mostly children, but adults, who seem hungry for purpose and something more. And to that hunger, I can't help but delve into it. And for my own part, I have tried multiple times to live a normal life. I was just thinking about that tonight as I was going to the grocery store. Like, man, I really tried multiple times. But for whatever reason, my purpose in life has been to try to understand things. And when I sit on it for myself, it just wells up in me and I have to share it. And I was always sharing it just like, over a beer with friends. And enough people said, Becca, you should do a podcast. That I was like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. Do I have guests? How do we do this? You guys are all at work. I'm not teaching right now. That's how it started. And every time I try to get a guest on, I've been screwing up my schedule. So for those of you who are ready to go for this, I apologize. Because here it is in the midnight hour. And I really need to go to bed. And this is when I chose to record this. Because there's no time like the present. At any rate, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Really, my podcast. Someday I'll do a TED Talk. It'll be much more, I won't be wearing my fleece. And maybe I'll have like a videogram, right? How they do. And it'll be like 12 minutes exactly. And I'll wear a really on-point suit. And maybe even heels, although I hate heels because they hurt your feet. But I'm just going to tell you right now how I'm going to look for my TED Talk. I hope you all, wherever you are having a beautiful day, a beautiful evening, a beautiful night. You deserve it. I thank you for coming into the world of my brain for a little while. I have to live here all the time, so I really welcome visitors. And just know that I don't want to, spoiler alert, not only is everything one, but the purpose of life is just love. And it's going to take a journey to try to describe what that means, but I think most people don't know what that means, actually. Most people don't know what a lot of things mean. And the thing is that words matter, because if we can't sync words with our own meaning, we will never understand each other. And that is the beauty and simplicity of math, actually, is that it is a language that has been so distilled over thousands of years that it means one thing. But then I'm also here to tell you it means lots of things, and that's the confusion. But think, just, I'll leave you with this. Define love for yourself. It wasn't, I don't think, until my son was born that I really chose to unpack that for myself. And how much romantic comedies had co-opted that phrase to me, yeah. So to understand the discoveries of life, requires us to unpack our thinking. All we can do is do for ourselves. That is it. So hope you have a wonderful night. I'm going to record this and I'll probably upload it in the weekend, and I'll be laughing at it with you. So I really appreciate you coming in. My favorite thing to do is talk about existence, because what else is there? If you didn't know this, when I was 11 months old, I was cut open in exploratory surgery. They thought something was wrong with my bowel. It was fine. But then when they cut me open, they caused a problem. They being the doctors. So they had to cut me open a second time a week later, or I was going to die. I was tied down to a bed for 2 weeks while my stitches held alone, because I have an older sister. I have a younger brother too, but he wasn't born yet. But my older sister and my dad was in medical school, and my mom would go home with my sister. And I was left in a hospital room, tied to a bed alone, left to scream. Trust me, I've had plenty of therapy unpacking what that was. A lot of buried memories and all these kind of things. So when you do that, I view that as a gift. that experience of mine has been a gift to me. Because I was forced to confront a lot of these things that most people don't when I was a child. I was told repeatedly, people I'd never met or didn't think that I'd met would tell me about how I was the miracle baby, right? Who survived, and all these church people would talk about things. And I struggled mightily with many things later on in life, and always. But one of the things that always stuck with me that drove so much of my youth and my young adulthood was, why did I survive? Like, it was a big why. And I was driven by a purpose. Okay? Not everybody has that. Some people just can be driven by a beautiful purpose on their own. They don't need a life-altering thing to happen to them when they're a child. And for me, anytime, I view it like a road trip. Anytime I would get off on a rest stop of life and someone say to me, my own ex-husband at one point, someone would ever say to me, like, this is a nice spot, let's just stay here, right? I just couldn't do it. I would stay for a little while, but I would, be like, but I have this destination. And people would say, well, what are you talking about? But I was young and didn't know how to articulate what it was I was doing. And then, one day you end up now finally alone because your caravan of people who wanted to do your road trip with you all left at some point in time. They're like, no, I don't even know where we're going. You have no direction. But I just felt called to something. And the next thing you know, you find yourself like on the beach overlooking the ocean, something that people have never seen before. And how do you describe the ocean to someone who's never seen it? And then you're just there and you're like, holy cow, I feel like this was the thing that I was supposed to come and find. And then you find it and you look around and you're like, oh, I'm here by myself. Well, maybe I don't know, do I retrace my steps and find all those people? Tell them to come along with me? I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm here creating a podcast about the meaning of life and all things and the analemma and our current model of the universe. The reason I think it matters, even though very few of us are ever going to go into space, is because it changes what we view about our own importance. And I'm here to tell you right now, you are of the utmost importance. So if you haven't heard that today, please hear it now. Thank you for listening, by the way, and remember I got about to tell you, you are the most important thing in the universe. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself why. I mean, and I am too, because we're one, you and me. But please know that. Because I do. So in a sense, like in the cellular level, I'm doing my part as a cell. I recognize who I am, who we are. And now I'm getting too much, and you're probably just, is that too much? Because it is the cellular level. There's a great quote that I don't often do. I would rather keep my mouth closed and be thought a fool than open it and remove all doubt. Well, I open my mouth a lot, don't I? So take it for what you will, and I hope you have a good night. Thank you so much for coming around. Here, I was drumming on the way in, so I'll drum on the way out. It's just short.
Thank you so much for listening to Zeros and Ones with Becka Thompson. Please subscribe and share.